well, thanks for stopping by. I'm just making this video just for fun, just to show a few cool devices that I'll be fixing today. And those devices are my iPod Nano 6th gen, my iPhone 4S, and my iPhone 10. So my iPhone 10, this is my actual phone that I use every day. It doesn't have an earpiece in it anymore. I took that out because water damage was causing it to boot loop, which is kind of a known issue. iPhone 4S is pretty simple. It just has a cracked screen. And then the iPod Nano has got these lines in the screen that were caused by a drop, and then some moisture has got in there and caused some color issues on the display. So hopefully I'm going to try and address all of those in this video. But I think I will start with the iPhone 4. So yeah, pretty simple. This was my first iPhone that I really considered a phone. You know, I had the 2G and the 3G and the 3GS before it, but I really used this one for probably a better part of 5 or 6 years, which is crazy. And I didn't really use it as a cellular phone. I had it hooked up to Google Voice, and before then Hangouts, if anyone remembers Google Hangouts. But yeah, so it's pretty simple to get into. Just got 2 pentalobe screws on the bottom. Last time I replaced the screen on this phone was 2017, so it has been a minute. Yeah, and so that screen that I've got on here right now, you can actually take a look at the corners and see how it's got these little gray things that you can see in the corners. Those are like digitizer elements, and I'm pretty sure it's because this is some cheap aftermarket screen, but I got an OEM one to replace it this time. All right. I've been in this phone many times, and so there are probably a few screws missing, but nothing crazy. So yeah, get to work on replacing this screen. And there's the battery out. And we've got this little piece right here. Right, and the battery. It should be fairly simple. Usually the battery is adhered to this back side here, but obviously I've been in this phone more times than I can count, so decided to not worry about the hassle of doing that and just leave the battery easily replaceable. Alright, that's the dock connector cable out. pop that SIM tray out as well. Excuse me. Got this little tiny antenna cable. I'll just pop out like so. Pop off the camera now. Just this one ribbon cable. The whole camera assembly comes out. And we do need to get to the other side of this motherboard, so I'm gonna have to undo these Lego style ribbon cables as well. Got one more at the top here. And one on the side, kind of hidden. Kind of hard to get to as well. There we go. Alright, and those are the actual, well, at least one of those is the display connector. So we've got those now. Gonna need a bigger Phillips for that. Actually, I'll just do a little flathead. That'll do just fine. Cool little part. We've got this little clip here that needs to come off. Oh, looks like it already popped off. Yep. All right. Obviously, there's quite a few little parts missing from this thing. And I haven't opened it up since 2017, which was round about the last time the phone was updated. Apple updated the iPhone 4S and the iPad 2 with iOS 9.3.6, I believe, just kind of out of nowhere, and just fixed some, to my understanding, some minor Compass-related issues that the devices were having. But yeah, no other real improvements or anything. But still a cool thing to know that the iPhone 4S was updated again in 2017, roundabout. Could have been a year after that, but I don't really remember. All right, so we've got some more standoffs here. At least one more standoff right here. I'm going to need to bring that flathead back out. Okay, that screw's already gone. Alright, and that should be the motherboard, I think. Let's see. Hold these cables out of the way and just kind of slide it out. Alright. There's the whole board. Pretty neat. Not really sure what this little red sticker is here. That could be a water detection thing, or perhaps saying that it's a Verizon phone. I don't know. I do know it was a Verizon optioned iPhone 4S. So I'm not sure what that little red sticker is, but yeah, pretty cool. So we'll put that down and get back to this. And there's a little grounding assembly that usually sits on top of that rung there, but I lost that many years ago, so there's really no hope of finding that. And really the only thing I use this phone for is playing old games like Infinity Blade 1 and 2 and Peggle, one of my favorites. Yeah, and I've got it permanently downgraded to iOS 6.1.3, I believe, and permanently jailbroken, which is pretty cool. Allows me to get access to pretty much any of the old games I want to install. I can just do it right from the phone, or set it up with a iFile local file server, so I can download games on my computer and load them directly onto the phone. So pretty neat. We got the motor out, and I'll take the speaker out. It's kind of unfortunate. The iPhone 4S was the easiest iPhone by far to get into, but the hardest probably to get to the screen, because you had to gut basically the whole phone to get to the screen. And I don't really know if they've done anything like that since then, at least with crazy amount of steps to actually get to the screen, you know, having to take apart the whole phone. Alright, so this speaker's starting to come out, but it's still got its little piece down in the corner. It's kind of attached to it, so I'll have to just carefully bend that back, and our speaker comes out. There's the whole speaker assembly. Pretty cool. It's a little dusty, but we can clean that up. Alright, and then from this point, I think we just get to removing the side screws, which is kind of cool. I'm already missing one in that corner and that corner, but I've got one in this corner and this corner, so I'll take what I can get. Yeah, last time I fixed this thing was in a very small home, and we didn't have a tech bench or anything to actually work on the phone, so I just ended up doing the whole repair on the carpet. So I'm sure that's where I lost some of those screws, and I'm sure they are still there to this day. Here's a really helpful hint I found about these iPhone 4 screens, is that you would think you have to remove all of these side screws here, but you don't. You only have to loosen them enough for the screen to come away from the housing. So that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully reduce some unneeded steps here. All right. I'll loosen it a little bit more just in case. I don't want to do it too much because these are pretty small screws. Then you can usually hold just the outer housing and then push down like in a corner. Yeah, there we go. Get our tool out and pull the display out. All right. Here's the old display. You can see how there's just no glass there. It's because I took it out because it was really sharp. But yeah, obviously not a OEM Apple screen, at least based on what I can tell. So we don't need to save that. I do have here what seems to be a OEM screen. What's nice is that if I look actually in the corners, there's no digitizer sensors or anything, or those little metal lines that we saw on the other one. So that's good. Take a look at the phone here. Here's one of those water sensors or indicators that I was talking about. Obviously this one shows that the phone has been wet. In fact, it's actually been completely submerged because I dropped it in the can when I was younger. So yeah. And since I dropped it in the can, I've definitely cleaned it, but now is also a good time to get in there and wipe down anything you usually wouldn't be able to. So got some rubbing alcohol, and I'm just gonna go around the surfaces here, get off any of that dust. Yeah, so I used this phone for a very long time, and in 2017 the iPhone 10 was released, which was super cool. It was the first phone that I thought kind of was the spiritual successor to the iPhone 4. Obviously you've got the iPhone 5, but like I think, you know, physically they had the same thing going on, stainless steel, glass back, and we hadn't seen that from any phone since 2012, or 2011 rather, which was super duper cool. And so in 2018 I got a iPhone X, which is still the phone that I use today. and it's been great. So I love the iPhone 4S. It's definitely my favorite iPhone. I love how it was made. I love the size. I love how small it was. And I really wish they would make something that was this size again. It'd be so cool. All right, so we've got our new screen here. Looks good. I'll just clean up this back here. Polish it up a bit. And then the thing when you're putting back one of these screens in an iPhone 4, there are little tiny washers on each of these screws. And if you insert these forks here between the screw head and the washer, that's not correct. It has to be beneath the washer. So getting that done first time is kind of difficult, but we'll see if we can get lucky. All right, so I'm gonna fish these cables back through the front. And make sure it all looks good. All right, and I think we did get lucky. Let me see. Go ahead and tighten these temporarily. Then on this side, push it back through. Something's not wanting to line up right. Alright, so I figured out what that issue was that was causing the screen not to sit flush with the housing. The plastic piece that covers the camera and kind of secures it in that spot had stayed in, probably because instead of going with the screen like it should have, there was nothing for it to sit on because the screen was so damaged. So got that out and it should be all right now. So let's take another crack at it. Fish the ribbon cables through. And bingo, that looks much better. Alright, that looks good. And then we had these two lonesome screws instead of the four you usually have, and that's okay. So we'll just put back in what we can. Let's do the opposing side. So I'll do this side and that side. Go ahead and test our home button, make sure it's working. And it is. All right. The new screen is on. And looking good. Very nice. Okay. Well, now we get the joy of undoing everything that we just did, starting with our speaker assembly. So go ahead and clean it while it's out. Okay. And just drop that back in. Sure everything lines up. Now there are these little pins on the top side of where this antenna cable is, and they usually kind of pop under the chassis. That's my understanding, like so. I don't know if that'll come on the video. That I don't know if that'll show up, but yeah, they're pretty small. It's just one extra step you've got to do. Anyhow, so those are in, and you have to kind of hold it down like this because otherwise it'll pop up. And we can put these screws in now. So I'll start with the right side here. And then the left. This can be a little bit tricky since this whole area being speaker is magnetized. Make sure one more time that all these clips are down, and they are. And we can tighten these screws. Okay. And then we have the motor that we get to put back in. The main thing to note here is that you just want to make sure that this standoff here lines up with one of the standoffs on the housing. Really, my point here is not to just, really I'm not making a tutorial or anything on how to do this. I'm just doing it for fun. And I've had a channel for a little while, but nothing on it. So, gotta start somewhere. All right. All right, that looks good. Okay, put the motherboard back in. I'm gonna wipe it down real quick. There's the two contacts where the motor connect on the underside right there. It's kind of neat. Alright, I just realized that I had messed up when I put this screen in initially. This second ribbon cable here wasn't all the way through, and so that's important. You've got to make sure that that second ribbon cable comes through. It's kind of a weird one because it's thin at the top towards the connector itself, and towards the bottom it kind of turns into this larger square thing, so it's kind of weird. But anyhow, yeah, the motherboard's been cleaned, the motor's been installed, speakers installed again, and now we get to put it back together. So I'm going to carefully fish under this stuff here. Alright, looking good. Oh, I hear someone coming. Let's see who it is. Oh. He's my pet pigeon. He came to tell me that he wants to go back outside. So I'm gonna take him to his family and be right back. Alright, I'm back. Alright, that all looks good. And now we've got the rest of our screws to put in. So we've got our large standoff at the bottom here. Go ahead and put these connectors back where they're supposed to go. Alright, and then we'll bend our display connectors down now. I'm gonna remagnetize my screwdriver because it's kind of losing its grip. Much better. Okay. Again, a lot of these screws I don't have anymore because I lost them many years ago, which is kind of a bummer, but not much I can do about it. So get this little antenna cable plugged in here. You know what, technically this is supposed to actually fish behind this little piece here. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I think that works. Put our camera in, make sure there's no dust in it. Looks pretty good to me. So cool that the camera and the flash were one little part that you could take out and replace in 15 minutes if you wanted to. So cool. Alright, we've got that top standoff now. There's usually a shield that comes from that hole and goes over this little piece here, but missing that shield as well. Alright, that's in there good. Alright, and then we get to put this piece in. It's got these two clips at the bottom that kind of slide into underside of that RF shield there, covering the motherboard components. So this is my last chance to make sure that all these connectors are really seated well, and they are. Alright, went right on in. And luckily I do have all the screws for this one. Largest one goes at the top here. Second largest on the side. And then these two ones are only, these two are only 0.1 millimeters different in size. So I've got to really look at them, see which one's longer. And this one is longer, it's a smaller one, and it goes there, and then this last one goes here. Looking good, all right. Get to reroute our little cable here, so it kind of goes around that one standoff, and it's got this little hook, goes down like that, so I'll make sure it pushes down, and make sure the antenna cable is seated, and it is. Looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and rub this little adhesive spot down again over the speaker, and then this should just kind of route up to that connector there for the dock. I think I did miss this one screw. Yep. Okay. And that guy plugs in like so. And we can go ahead and plug this little part back in. Nice thing about this phone is that most of the screws on the inside, if not all of them, are Phillips. With those first two pintalopes being the only pintalopes that I'm aware of in the iPhone 4S that you need to actually use to disassemble it, which is great. Not so easy nowadays with the three-headed bits and, you know, like the other stars and whatnot shapes that they've invented to keep you out. Alright, last but not least, the battery. So right now the phone doesn't need anything else to turn on except for the battery, so I'm wondering if we can do a test here. If I put the battery in, just pop that piece in, will I be able to turn it on? Hey, how about it? It's faint, but we do have proper video signal coming out, which is super encouraging. Let me see if I can find a old 32 pin or 30 pin connector. Right, so had to pause the video for a second. But yeah, we just put the battery back in and confirm that the screen is indeed running. We'll test the touch sensors and the digitizer in a minute when we put it all back together. But yeah, so we've only got a few more screws left here, these guys, and then this little connector that kind of sits over the antenna in an odd way. Like, let's see if I can do it. Yeah, okay, cool. So, and that just kind of plugs in, and then we should be able to just screw these guys in. All right, and I believe that's it for our work inside of the phone. So I'm going to give it one last kind of good cleaning on the inside here with a dab of 90% or 91% isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Well, as my granddad would say, that's close enough for government work. So put the SIM tray back in, and polish up the inside of the rear housing piece here. Just give it a little wipe down, both sides. You know, it was so cool. If you ever got any junk in your phone that was like obstructing your rear camera, you could just pop this off and clean the area itself, which is so cool, you know. And it is just, it's not that simple anymore. With most modern iPhones, I know that they've gotten a little bit better in recent years, but I haven't been able to get my hands on one to actually test its repairability. But these were always great. Okay, so always put the rear housing in offset towards the top, about 1 millimeter or so, and then slide it down. It's now in, and we can take our 2 pentalobe screws, and they should just kind of pop into their holes respectively. And now let's see how that actually turned out. I don't know if I'll be able to turn the phone on yet. Nope, still asking for power, so in the meantime, while this is charging, let's move on to the next device, my iPhone 10. So, first thing I'm going to do is make sure I can shut it off, and I will power it down, give it a quick clean. Could be wrong, but I think it's the same pentalobe head on the bottom of the iPhone 10 to get it open. Yep, kind of neat. I wish that the iPhone 10, and really any iPhones, were designed with the more open speaker grills and vents. So like the iPhone 4, it's got these big oval shaped speaker holes. Well, one of them's a speaker, one's a microphone. And the iPhone 10 and the iPhones going after it all have these little round holes, and they're super prone to getting filled with debris. And when you try to clear them out, you know, it's not like it has this big almost rugged mesh that the iPhone 4 has, or even the iPhones before that had. It's got this little tiny membrane between the actual housing and the speaker chamber itself, and that's, you know, you can take a sharp tool like this, get in there, and it just pops that membrane. And then you've got debris going directly into your phone, which isn't ideal. And I like the more industrial design of the exaggerated elements of the iPhone 4, with the big volume buttons that actually had the plus and minus symbols on them. That was super cool. The other device that's got that, is this iPod's got it. iPhone 5, I believe the iPhone 5 had it as well. But yeah, this thing is shut off. I'm going to pop the SIM tray out. And all I'm doing today on this phone is popping in a new earpiece because it doesn't have one right now. And so I've been living without an earpiece on my phone for about a year, which has been kind of a fun experiment to see, what would you actually say to someone when they can hear the other person you're talking to, because you're on speaker or you're on headphones. So it's been kind of fun, but I'm ready for that season to be over. So let me get out some of my tools here. I'm gonna go ahead and get my heat gun going at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And turn up that air a bit. I'm just going to start going around the perimeter of the phone. I'm going to bring up that temperature a little bit, maybe 350 instead. Yeah, there we go. And this is just to loosen the adhesive that's helping hold the display in place. And then we'll get a suction cup actually and on the display face and bring it up enough to slip something thin between the housing and the rear of the display panel, and then it should just pop right open. I've replaced the screen on this phone once, and I've replaced the batteries twice. So the iPhone 10 is actually a really, really good option for a repairable iPhone, I think. Obviously, it's getting a little outdated now, but I tend to think that phones last longer than most people think, and I look at the new things that Apple is releasing, and I'm not super compelled by any of them. The iPhone 16e I thought was kind of nice because I just liked how it looked design-wise, and I'm sure I'm the one person on the internet who actually likes how the thing looks. But I thought it looked cool. I liked the clean design of just having one camera. The iPhone 10 was neat because its dual camera setup was kind of merged into one, and it looked clean and small. And the new iPhones are just these huge camera setups that are just bulging out of the phone like a lot, and you can't even set the phone flat anymore. That's not something we've been able to do for a long time, but the 16e was looks kind of neat with its just singular camera system on the back, but not really innovative enough for me to see a whole lot of changes between this phone from 2017 and the stuff that's out now. Obviously, we've got AI, Apple Intelligence, we've got more RAM in the phones now. Um, but you know, if you're just an average user, I don't think you're truly gonna know the difference, usability wise, between them. You know, the new ones have got niceties that the old ones don't, like high refresh rate displays and more RAM. They're faster if you're, you know, got better GPUs if you're into mobile gaming and all. But you could probably get a mint condition iPhone 10, 256 gigabyte storage variant on eBay for 150 bucks or less. You know, that's pretty compelling. Gonna get things a little hotter here. That seems fairly warm. I don't know if it's gonna be warm enough or not, but we'll see. All right, it's that easy. Gently go around the sides, making sure not to stick the pick in too far, because there are ribbon cables off to one side of the display. All right, and here's the phone. Obviously, there's where our earpiece would go, but there's nothing there. I've got an iFixit battery in here that I installed, I think about 2 years ago, probably no more than that. This is a genuine OEM part here, purchased off of a parts reseller on eBay. I need to keep scissors off of it because I don't remember. Oh, there's the iPhone 4. Let's see if it works. Ah, there's nothing like it. Yes. Easily the most underrated game of all time, Infinity Blade 2. Really, the whole trilogy is amazing, and the books. So sad that they took it away. Imagine what a revised version of this game would look like in 2025. So cool. So yeah, our screen is working. I've got a screen protector that I will install on this thing. But we've got sound, touch working. But yeah, all the good stuff. So cool. Doesn't get any better than that. Yeah, and then I've got Peggle, the first Infinity Blade, Galaxy on Fire 2 HD. It's a banger. Got Cydia and a few other apps for injecting IPAs and such, but yeah, we're all working. Let's check the camera just to confirm. Camera is working. Awesome. And the front-facing camera is working as well. All right, so that's a success. I'm gonna plug this guy back in to charge so I can enjoy some Infinity Blade later. But back to this guy, the iPhone 10. The lip around the display area is super dirty. But we can clean that before we put it back together. Funny story, the reason I'm having to do this in the first place is because I dropped this thing in a lake. Unintentionally, of course, but I did drop it in a lake. And the reasoning was I got pulled over by a water cop while I was on a jet ski with my wife, and he thought that I was drinking. I later realized that he probably thought I was drinking because of the spray-on sunscreen that I had put on, which smells a lot like alcohol. But I had not been drinking, and anyhow, we got done with the whole ordeal. I got back on the jet ski, and instead of handing me my driver's license, he threw it at me, and it actually bounced off of the front of the jet ski and started to sink in the lake. So I jumped off of the jet ski and into the lake to retrieve my driver's license, which I did. But in the meantime, I got my phone soaked. So this guy got completely soaked. It stopped working. It looked toast. But I actually took it all apart. I popped the motherboard into the oven as a last-ditch effort for 15 minutes or so at like 350 degrees, and put it all back together, and it actually turned on. The only thing that actually suffered damage was the old earpiece speaker, which was causing the phone to boot loop because it had gotten water damage. So kind of funny. Definitely a story that you would tell one's kids someday. Anyhow, let's get this kind of propped open like so. Oh, and it is dirty. Golly. I'm going to kind of pause the video here while I just clean this whole area. Alright, I'm back. I've cleaned things up a little bit more. I still have some more cleaning I'm going to do before I'm done. But I think our next step is actually to disconnect the display from the motherboard. So we need to get a tri-bit here. And undo these screws. And yes, there are just a few missing here on this one part. What can I say? I've been in here a few times, and I don't really care a whole lot about what's in there or not because it's my phone. So, okay, here's our phone. We can set that to the side for now. And there is just some gunk that's accumulated in the speaker grill here, just after a year of being just completely open, I suppose, to the elements. So I want to take the opportunity to clean that up. Someone get a Q-tip that is drenched in rubbing alcohol. just kind of fill that speaker hole and let it drain out the other side. Right, through there. Right, I'm back. The phone I've been using to record all of this, an iPhone 6s Plus. Doesn't have a lot of storage, so I'm having to film for as long as I can and then reset by deleting the videos from the phone and moving them to my computer. So just been doing a little bit of back and forth. So anyhow, I'm back, still cleaning out stuff for this earpiece here. I'm not really sure what the best way to do this is because I've never seen anything quite this dirty before. Alright, that's looking a bit better. Not factory level brand new or anything, but a lot better. Much better. Now I won't be replacing the waterproof IP67 seal or whatever they want to call it on the phone because I just don't care. It's still in okay shape, and it'll keep the phone blocked out from a good deal of dust and debris and all, but I don't plan on taking this thing swimming or even bringing it near a body of water anytime soon, so I'm not going to be worried about that. Typically that is the procedure, is you'd actually buy the ring that goes with the screen, or it comes in a kit from iFixit, and that's usually a good practice to do. But I'm not going to be worrying about it. Okay, so now we get to move to the fun part. We have all of these little tiny modules on the speaker proximity sensor setup here. They all have got to line up in their respective little holes that they've got here on the top of the phone. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure firstly that the whole area is very clean and doesn't have any dust. So I'll get a Q-tip and I'll be right back. Alright, and then those parts just kind of go in like so, and then the speaker itself kind of lines up and gets pressed in like that, and I don't know if I've got all of the screws or not, but we're about to find out, because I know I've got some here, but I'm not sure if they're the right ones or not. I'm missing a few of these from when the incident happened in the first place. Yep, well, it's another screw casualty on my part, I think. Yeah, I wasn't able to find all the right ones for that last little top piece. So I'm just gonna trust that it will be all right with just the pressure it takes to sit in the back there flush. Yeah, so let's connect these connectors back up. It is nice to know that the iPhone 10 will work with with something like the front speaker assembly for the earpiece gone, which is just kind of neat, because you never know how locked down phones are going to be. And obviously this phone was not willing to boot with a broken proximity sensor, which was very odd. But luckily, I think we've remedied that today. So everything's connected back up. Obviously, I don't have that shield bracket in there yet, so I'll do that in a second. Also just want to take time to appreciate the array of about 15 little Lego style ribbon connectors on the left side of the iPhone 10 motherboard. It's truly amazing, all the engineering that went into that, alongside the multiple layer PCB in this phone. So I'm going to turn it on and see if it still comes to life or not. Alright, we got a screen, that's a good sign. And it did boot, no SIM available, that's okay. I'm going to try the touch screen. Looks like everything is indeed working. And I'm going to make a quick call to my wife to see if the earpiece is working. Alright, so it all works. I'm going to pop this guy back open for a minute, pop the little cable tray here, I don't know what you want to call it, this little bracket, back in where it needs to be. Alright, put the screen back on, and then at this point I usually will just take a microfiber cloth just to kind of hold it as I massage the screen back into place and get all the clips to go in where they should. Switch back to that Penelope bit. Put our two screws back in near the lightning port. Give it a good cleaning. Obviously, this repair is far from first class in the sense that I'm missing a few screws and, you know, all that, but, you know, all things considered, with it being a phone from 2017 that is still completely usable, can make calls and everything I need to do. I think it's worth doing repairs like this, even though it's not, you know, you'll look at the phone and think that it's flawless on the inside, and you'll know that there's a few flaws, but you're the only person in the world who will actually notice that. So it's kind of nice. Pop the SIM card back in its tray. The tray looks pretty clean, so I'm not going to worry about dusting it off right now. Pop that sucker back in, and I'll turn it back on, see if I can get some cellular data going. And I will take the heat gun back around the display to make sure that the glue kind of reactivates and all. But yeah, everything's working. I was able to make that call and use the earpiece speaker for the first time, which was super cool. And it sounded fine. So I'm going to count this as a win and move on to our very last piece, the iPod Nano. I definitely have some sentimental value for this device. It was my dad's iPod Nano back when they did a recall on, I don't know if it was the first or second generation iPod Nanos, but they did a recall on them because of something that was happening with the screens or whatnot, and Apple basically were sending these guys out for free. So my parents each got a new one, and this was my dad's, and yeah, it's pretty neat. For a device made in 2010, this packs a lot of punch. It's really cool to have a device that kind of simulates iOS in a sense with its icons and all, and it be from 2010, which is super cool. I'm gonna go ahead and power this guy off. This is not the first time I've been in here inside this iPod. First time was to replace the battery, which I replaced after it running fine for 10 or more years, which is really cool. Alright, I lost that video again because I ran out of storage, but I'm back, and I was warming this screen up. I'm gonna have to do that again in order to get it off, and then I'm gonna be taking the screen and peeling it up from the side, kind of from the headphone jack side. So from this right side, I'm gonna be peeling it up to the left because that's where the ribbon cable is located, on the left side there. And then this is a pretty easy repair. I've got my new part here, and we'll just pop it in. Alright, that's plenty warm. And get this little pick here up onto that display, and it should kind of peel out like so. Alright. And there is a little tiny lip there. We got that out. Okay. Then we can get that part out. And boom, we're in. You can see the old battery in there. How cool is that? Look at that battery. So neat. And then it really is built just like a little phone in there. And I'm kind of sad because they didn't make another iPod Touch like this that really had that iOS feel. They had the iPod Touch, not iPod Touch, iPod Nano. They had that iPod Nano 7th generation, I think. That had a little home button, and it had a little home screen and all, but it had this weird UI that was somewhat reminiscent of iOS, but it wasn't didn't share the exact same icons as iOS, which is kind of a bummer. But anyhow, here's that display. It just comes out in one piece. So nice. I love that the digitizer and the LCD itself are in this singular piece here. Whereas devices like most iPads, they've got the LCD or at least most older iPads. They've got the LCD under the digitizer, and then the digitizer on top, and it's just this whole mess. But it's neat that this is kind of a one-piece deal. So I've got my new screen here, and it truly is brand spanking new. Even the adhesive for the ribbon cables is still on there. So yeah, I'll have to peel that back, but this is a good time to take a look inside of the machine. You can see the little tiny ARM SoC right there. It's this thing. It says ARM on it. It's got Apple's logo on it. So cool. It's kind of a neat little size too. I assume that's going to be CPU on one side, RAM on the other. You know, audio encoders and such. But yeah, you can see some of the Kapton tape that I put in there when I replaced that battery. But yeah, very cool. Again, this also has got a little rubber ring that goes around it, but I don't have that, so it's gonna be going back in without it. Take this little protected piece off, and you know what, since I'm only going to be in here once every 10 years or so, I may as well clean up some of this dust I'm seeing. Alright, so the story on how this device got broken in the first place. I was at a museum a few years ago, and they required me to take my watch off. I'll get to that in a minute. But they required me to take my watch off and empty my pockets and all. And the security guard just was like, yeah, you can just hand all those things to me. So I did. And I went through the little checkpoint or whatever. And on the other side, the security guard was walking up and was going to hand me my stuff, but he just dropped this straight on the ground and broke the display. And the weird thing is, instead of picking it up with his own hands, he went and got like one of those little trash picker upper arm things, little grabbers, and he used that to pick it up. It's like, dude, come on, be a man. That was pretty sad day. But you know, it's one heck of a device. It's still working great. And I use it all of the time. You know, it doesn't have Bluetooth or any of that fancy stuff, but it does have a perfectly adequate headphone jack that is great for really anything. I still prefer wired headphones and wired interfaces as a whole. Yeah, okay, so that is done. Now we've got our little shield that will kind of fit back in, and we kind of have to encourage it to get in there right. This little rubber piece here folds out of the way so we can line that screw hole up. Okay. Get that little rubber bit back in its spot. And I'm gonna just try and turn it on. Alright, so we've got video, which is good. Do we have touch? We do. Fantastic. Oh, and it looks so good. I've also got a screen protector for this one, just to prevent any accidents in the future. that could happen to it. This display just kind of finesses back into its spot and adheres down. I may come back with some additional adhesive and get things that's sealed a little bit better in here, but that should be it. Oh, yes. Yeah, buddy. All right. All right. Well, wanted to thank you for joining me today in this low budget video. It's my first video here on YouTube for my channel, Cool Computing. And the goal with the channel is just to periodically make videos about tech that is either outdated, gimmicky, interesting, cool, or things that are sentimental like these. So today we replaced the earpiece speaker in my iPhone 10. We replaced the display on my old iPhone 4S so we can enjoy things like Infinity Blade 2. Absolute amazing game. And we replaced the display on my iPod Nano 6th gen. So thank you so much for stopping in and taking the time to watch this video. If you all have any questions about what I did or ideas on videos I could make in the future with other old iPhones, iPods, reminiscing on old technologies like Windows Phone and Power PCs and the like, let me know in the comments. So thank you all, and I hope that you have an awesome day. Peace.